I'm not going to get too far into this tonight. I really don't want to. One thing I do want to mention, though, of all the crazies that have spoken vis-a-vis this mass killing, the one that to me was the craziest. Now, let me, before I tell you, let me just say that, as I mentioned last night, the usual half-wits have made their statements about it was the preacher's fault. The man, Reverend Pinckney, who was gunned down, it was his fault for all these people dying because he refused to allow guns in his church. I mean, the madness in this country is so rancid and so foul-smelling and so rotten. It just staggers the imagination that we live here. It really does. But the usual right-wing freaks have had their say and will continue to have their say, and the liberals have had their say and will continue to have their say. And there's nothing new that I've heard. Maybe you've heard some new approach to reconciling this Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and the massive death rate by firearms that continues to escalate in this country, whether it is suicide or murder or, whatever it is. But the most, I'm not sure what the next word should be, the most ridiculous, the most outrageous, the most narcissistic, the most insane, I don't know, statement that I've heard so far in this whole thing was the woman in Shelby, North Carolina, who, after having watched some of the video of what the suspect at the time, he's now confessed, what the suspect looked like and what the car looked like, she felt that she had spotted him and his car in Shelby, North Carolina. So I believe the way it went, she called her husband, and he said to call the police. And she did. And the killer was arrested with no resistance at all. And then the woman in Shelby, North Carolina, of course, she now has her 5 minutes, or had her 5 minutes of television fame. And one of the interviewers this morning that I saw, I don't know what channel it was or what network it was on. It's really immaterial because I'm sure she said the same to anybody who asked her. But one of the interviewers asked her if she had been afraid when she saw this killer and his car. And she said no, she was not afraid because everything, the whole thing, was in her Lord's hands. Everything was in her, and she made some little hand motion up to the roof of the, or the ceiling of the studio she was in, or her place of business, as if there was somebody up there. And the whole thing was in his hands, so why should she be afraid? And, of course, I'm sitting there thinking, well, you arrogant, self-satisfied, narcissistic thug.
Well, a North Carolina florist is being hailed a hero this morning. On her way to work yesterday, Debbie Dills called the police after seeing Dylan Roof's car. Her tip led directly to the suspect's murder's capture. Joining us now is that woman, many calling her a hero. Debbie Dills, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Debbie, when you were driving, you remembered hearing something in the morning. What did you hear? Where did you hear it? And what did you see on the road?
Actually, watching Fox News, Fox and Friends, yesterday morning I had paid close attention, actually the night before when I actually heard about the church shooting, and my heart went out to those people there. And I don't know why I paid closer attention. I'm calling it divine intervention. I believe God had a plan in it. And as I was driving to work, I was running late. I looked over and I seen the car, and it looked familiar to me, and I wondered why. And now as I look back over, it's because of the pictures that I seen on the news. But I actually went past him, and I seen the South Carolina tag on the back of it, and I seen the white tag on the front of his car, right, and the bowl haircut.
See, that was the key. Yesterday morning, we didn't know what to make of that hair. We thought maybe it was a disguise. It might have been a hairnet, but that was his actual haircut. So you pull alongside him, you realize, hey, that's him as you're driving down Highway 74. So what did you do?
Well, I got a little nervous. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a hero, and I'm not brave. I got a little nervous, but I just started talking to the Lord about it, and then I got off, and I got off of the exit to come on into Kings Mountain, and I started thinking about it. What if it really was him? I wasn't sure it was him, and I didn't want to get anybody else in trouble or be overreacting. So I called my boss, and he said, well, we need to call somebody. And he got on the phone with the Kings Mountain Police, and he stayed on the phone with me, and he told me to go get back on the
Right.
74 bypass, and that's what I did. And I was able to catch up with him and get right behind him and get his tag number. And the Kings Mountain Police and the Shelby City Police caught him within a matter of minutes, and
Wow.
it was him. So.
Well, yeah, it was, Debbie. I understand you went back on and you followed him for more miles. When you looked in the car and saw him, besides noticing the haircut, did this guy look nervous? Did he look as though he was on the run? Did anything strange occur to you?
No, he wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary. He just looked like a very young man. That, yeah.
Debbie, you are a hero. I know you're not saying you are one, but there was such unrest around the country after hearing that 9 people were killed by this man in a church while they were praying. Do you ask God, why me? Why here? Why me, God? Why am I the hero?
Oh, I'm not the hero. God's the hero. He just used me. If we are a willing vessel, he can use us, but we got to open up our hearts and our minds. And I don't know why he chose me, and he chose Todd, and he chose us to do this, but he's got to be glorified in all, in everything. And he's going to get the glory one way or the other. And I hope it's through me, and I hope he's pleased with me. I want him to be pleased with me more than anything else.
Well, Debbie, you know, the police caught him about 240 miles away from the shooting site in Charleston, South Carolina. He would have driven by hundreds, if not thousands, of cars, but you were the one who actually picked up the phone and called your boss, Todd, and said, what should I do? It looks like, you know, I think you would say that God put you in the right place at the right time, wouldn't he?
Oh, he did, and that's how he is. That's the kind of God that I serve. That's my God, and he puts us where we need to be when we need to be.
9 people were murdered, and your fantasy God pulled the trigger. Following her line of reasoning, it's all in his hands. My Lord and Savior, it's in his hands. He pulled the trigger on those 9 people, and somehow you think that your life was spared, or you didn't have to be afraid because he was watching over you, Miss Shelby, North Carolina freak. Your sweet God was watching over you, and the same God that was supposed to be watching over these 9 victims, what? Shelby, North Carolina woman went out to take a leak and missed his chance to protect them? See, that's the sort of thing about fundamentalist Christians that turns my stomach. It makes me so sick. And she said all this with a grin on her face, as if, yep, my Lord saved me. I don't need to feel fear because I know Jesus. And everything is in his hands.